In Venezuela, the re-elected President Nicolás Maduro called on the people to defend the country's peace from violence. The Israeli regime and the United States have dangerously raised tensions in the Middle East with the assassinations of Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh and Hezbollah's second most important commander Fuad Shukr. And the government of Libya repatriated 369 irregular migrants to their countries of origin, including more than 100 women and children. Hello and welcome to From the South. I'm Alejandra Garcia from teleSUR studios in Havana, Cuba. We begin with the news. In Venezuela, the re-elected President Nicolás Maduro called on the people to defend the country's peace from the violence that the Venezuelan extreme right wing wants to perpetrate. From the People's Balcony at the Miraflores Palace, the president asked the Venezuelan people to resume their daily and commercial activities since they will be safe under the watchful eye of the citizen security forces. In this sense, the head of state expressed his rejection of the intentions of the Venezuelan ultra-right wing and its U.S. allies to establish radical neoliberalism in the country through citizen violence. Also, President Maduro announced that in Venezuela there will be justice against the more than 1,000 people arrested by the security forces that provoked acts of violence in the country.
But we're going to repair all the damage. We're going to heal the wounds that they created. And with justice, we're going to consolidate the peace of Venezuela, the peace for everybody in Venezuela, the peace of all Venezuelans, men and women. And the working class will be united, working.
In Venezuela, the re-elected President Nicolás Maduro Moros denounced the destabilizing plan of the international extreme right wing that sought to create chaos in the country after the presidential elections held on July 28th. During a press conference, Maduro expressed that the country is in peace thanks to the measures taken in the face of the vandalism perpetrated by some groups financed and trained by the international extreme right. In this sense, the national president assured that the country will not fall into the hands of fascism and international imperialism. At the same time, he stated that if these events continue, he will call the people to a new revolution with different characteristics of the one that has been known in the country for 25 years. During a press conference, the president announced that he went to the Supreme Court of Justice to ask the Electoral Court to proceed to investigate everything that happened on July 28th and after this date.
I went to the Maximum Court of Justice so that the Electoral Hall proceed to pronounce the resolution of the electoral of Sunday, 28th of July, and to decide from the point of view of investigation, technical investigation, and institutional and judicial, and from the point of view of the Venezuelan laws, to decide what happened on the 28th of July and after the 28th of July, and to establish with clarity and legal sentence the results, the definite results that made me winner of the election on the July 28th, including all the steps of audits, all the audit steps that were made. In Venezuela, there are 16 audits, and all those 16 audits were made, all the audits were made.
At the press conference, the president also demanded the release of all records related to the presidential elections.
So I have demanded immediately the Electoral Court has all the diligence to obtain all the legal data, all the National Electoral Council, all the investigations of the Attorney General, and also to demand the information to the 10 candidates, presidential candidates, one by one, to the 38 political parties, and ratified to the press today with this long introduction that the great patriotic pole and the Socialist Unity Party of Venezuela are ready to deliver all the voting registers of all the 100% of the tables to this electoral court when it's demanded by the electoral court.
Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro went on Wednesday to the Supreme Court of Justice and filed a writ of amparo before the electoral chamber of said court to validate the election of July 28th. There he was received by the president of the highest court, Magistrate Carislia Rodriguez, also president of the electoral chamber, to whom he handed the document. He did so in the company of the Attorney General of the Republic, Reinaldo Muñoz. The writ is for the electoral chamber to address this attack on the electoral process and make clear everything that needs to be clarified. President Maduro pointed out that 100% of the tally sheets of the past elections will be made available. He affirmed that he is willing to publicly present all the tally sheets of the votes cast in the elections, the results of which are disputed by the extremist opposition.
It would be maybe the most criminal act till nowadays. I said it on time. Some people didn't believe because they say believe to see to believe, and as Saint Thomas said, bless the ones who believe without seeing, but bless the ones who see and believe. And let's be united, those all. Let's be united all. It is a criminal act, not only because of the violence, but criminal for as they search for criminals to attack, burn people alive, and burn public sectors as health facilities, to threaten life of the families, to burn markets and companies, vehicles, and attack their own people. And this is all directed by a perverse and criminal group.
The constitutional president of Venezuela ratified his willingness to collaborate in the investigation of the electoral chamber regarding his victory in the presidential elections of Sunday, July 28th.
And I have said that I am willing to be summoned, to be interrogated at all forms, be investigated by the electoral chamber as presidential candidate, winner of July 28 elections, and as head of state. I submitted to justice, and I have said beyond, as head of politics and revolutionary leader of Venezuela and son of Commander Chavez, that the Great Patriotic Pole and the United Socialist Party is ready to present all polling stations, all ballots, and I hope that the electoral chamber does the same with every candidate and every party.
On Wednesday, the Attorney General of Venezuela, Tarek William Saab, addressed the actions of the far-right groups seeking to tarnish the results of the July 28th elections. In this sense, William Saab pointed out that as they had been warning for months, there were plans of the extreme right-wing to declare the election as a fraud after July 28th and begin with terrorist acts throughout the nation. On the other hand, William Saab pointed out that the public ministry is investigating each of these criminal groups and assured that 20 subjects were apprehended for crimes that included attacks on military officials. Furthermore, he also emphasized that the far right is using a structured group of organized crime known as El Tren del Llano, associated to paramilitary groups.
I want to give a preliminary report, a preliminary one, about the actions that I'm mentioning there, all linked to the actions that I am mentioning there. Up to this moment we have arrested 1,062 people. If some of them, according to previous investigations, are proved to have no participations in these actions despite of being there, we have a justice system and fair trials, so they will be released. However, those found responsible, as the ones I am showing, all of them are responsible. will be sentenced to many years of prison.
On the other hand, the Attorney General ruled out the participation of social unions and student movements during the guarimbas.
In relation to what I'm saying, I could highlight a breaking point in what they have tried this time. This time you don't see, no one can point out to me that have seen, in these guarimbas, in these brutally negative actions, students for example, or members of a trade union, or again a social movement protesting against an alleged fraud.
International observers reaffirm transparency in Venezuela's presidential elections as well as the effectiveness of the electoral system. The joint preliminary report highlights the normality of the electoral process in full guarantee of the citizens' right to vote in peace and in an organized manner, for which they recognize the work of the National Electoral Council. They further praised the Republic plan for thoroughly conducting the citizen security and the custody of the electoral material without any kind of incidents. Likewise, they congratulate the Venezuelan people who, despite multiple pressures and interfering actions, gave an example of civility during the peaceful, orderly and transparent exercise of their right to vote. The Argentine and American jurist associations, the Chilean Human Rights Commission, among other organizations, denounced the siege of the Venezuelan embassy in Buenos Aires, which they described as an unacceptable violation of the Vienna Convention. Let's take a short break, but remember you can join us on TikTok at teleSUR English, where you'll find news in different formats, news updates, and more. We'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back. Israel and the United States have dangerously raised tensions in the Middle East with a series of lethal operations. The assassination of Hezbollah's second most important commander in Beirut was followed on Wednesday by the execution of the leader of the Hamas Palestinian resistance, Ismail Haniyeh, in Iran, while he was attending the opening of the President Masoud Pezeshkian. Hours later, the U.S.-led coalition struck Iraqi formations, leaving at least 4 deaths. Following an urgent meeting of the Supreme Security Council in Iran, Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has vowed severe punishment against the Israeli occupier. Simultaneously, resistance movements in Iraq and Yemen declared themselves ready for combat against Tel Aviv. Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has strongly condemned the assassination of Ismail Haniyeh, leader of the Islamic resistance movement Hamas. The Palestinian president has considered the attack against Haniyeh, which happened a few hours after the Israeli assassination of the number 2 of the Lebanese Shiite party militia Hezbollah, as a cowardly act and a dangerous event at a time of maximum tension in the region. U.S. Department Deputy Spokesperson Vedant Patel declined to offer an opinion on the Israeli airstrikes in Lebanon and reaffirmed Washington's support for Tel Aviv. Likewise, in the face of the Israeli aggression in the southern suburb of Beirut, the spokesperson assured that his nation is committed to diplomacy to avoid an escalation between the Zionist army and the Lebanese resistance, while the White House spokesperson Karine Jean-Pierre further refrained from speaking about the bombing and stressed that it is a war that can be avoided. The media reported that the action left martyrs and wounded, while rescue operations continue at the site. On the other hand, Egyptian Foreign Ministry condemned the Israeli assassination policies, including the head of Hamas, Ismail Haniyeh, and denounced the escalation of attacks by the Benjamin Netanyahu administration as a threat to provoke a general war in the Middle East. In this regard, Egypt also criticized the Tel Aviv regime's strategy of assassinations and violations of the sovereignty of other nations. The nation's government also called on the United Nations Security Council and the power to assume their responsibility and condemned the lack of progress in the ceasefire negotiations in Gaza, which increases the complexity and indicates the absence of Israeli political will to de-escalate the tensions. On Wednesday, in East Jerusalem, residents decided to go on strike in rejection of Tel Aviv's genocidal forces, which assassinated one of the Hamas leaders, Ismail Haniyeh, in Tehran. The Hamas-Palestinian resistance disclosed it and warned that Haniyeh's assassination won't go unpunished. Furthermore, Supreme Leader of Iran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, assured to be their duty to find justice and revenge as he had been assassinated in their nation. Meanwhile, the Netanyahu government has stated no comments so far. In this context, East Jerusalem President Abu Ayyad provided his regards on the current scenario.
We are on strike because of the assassination of Haniyeh. May God have mercy on him, and Israel should be smarter than that, because what is happening is not in the interests of Israel or the Palestinians or the whole world. This has caused a lot of problems. It's a message from Jerusalem to Israel: enough is enough. Even the Jews are tired, and so are we. I don't expect the situation to calm down because after Haniyeh, it will be the next person, and if they keep assassinating leaders, the problem will persist. So the solution is for Israel to make peace, for the Israeli people to decide to make peace. Once it makes peace, everything will be all right, but as long as there are assassinations, there won't be any peace.
On Wednesday, the United Nations denounced the torture of Palestinians detained by the government of Israel. A report published by the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights stated that at least 53 Palestinian detainees have died in Israeli military facilities and prisons since October 7th. Precisely, the statement said that the causes of death include simulated drowning, sleep deprivation, and electric shocks. Meanwhile, the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, Volker Turk, noted that Palestinians are held in deplorable conditions and received ill treatment and tortures, as he also reiterated his call for the immediate release of all Palestinians arbitrarily detained by Israel. We have a final short break coming up, but before we invite you to join our WhatsApp community for our English-speaking audience. You can scan the QR code on screen to join directly and share the link to reach more people. Constant news coverage of Latin America and the Caribbean, as well as the rest of the world. Final short break, don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. On Wednesday, President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, held talks with Prabowo Subianto, President-elect and Minister of Defense of Indonesia, to negotiate for a free trade zone agreement.
We also express the hope that the agreement on a free trade zone between the Eurasian Economic Community and Indonesia, which is almost ready for signing, will also play a very positive, noticeable role in the development of our trade and economic ties.
We consider Russia as a great friend, and I would like to continue to maintain and enhance this relationship.
The government of Libya repatriated 369 irregular migrants on Tuesday to their countries of origin, including more than 100 women and children. In this regard, Mohamed Barda, head of the Libyan Interior Ministry, announced that the measure is aimed at curbing irregular immigration, while giving details on the repatriation of 204 Nigerians and 165 Malaysians. Meanwhile, Barda also confirmed that the flights were carried out in coordination with the International Organization for Migration, which provides free return flights for migrants and help reintegrate them into their home countries. Libya has been criticized for its treatment of migrants and refugees, with accusations from human rights groups ranging from extortion to slavery.
From the Office of the Body for Combating Illegal Immigration, we have 2 flights today. The first flight is carrying to 100 for illegal migrants of Nigerian nationality. The second flight is carrying 165 people from the Republic of Mali.
In Angola, the Democratic Republic of the Congo and Rwanda agreed on a ceasefire to take effect on August 4th. The decision is the result of the ministerial meeting on the conflict in the east of the Democratic Republic of the Congo that took place in Luanda, the Angolan capital. The ceasefire will be verified by a mechanism to be set up for this purpose. The head of state and foreign affairs and cooperation of the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Therese Wagner, and the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Rwanda, Olivier Nugundrire, reached this agreement at the second ministerial meeting on the security and peace situation in the east of the Congo. We have come to the end of this news brief, but you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net and join us on social media, Facebook, X, Instagram, Telegram and TikTok. For Telesur English, I'm Alejandra Garcia. Thank you for watching.